Christian teen suspected of killing gay man in violent stabbing attack. The fatal stabbing of 28-year-old black gay dancer O'Shae Sibley on July 29th at a Brooklyn gas station has sent shockwaves through the community. The incident unfolded when Sibley and his friends, wearing pink swim trunks and enjoying vogue dancing, caught the attention of a group of young men. According to reports, these men began harassing Sibley's group, leading to heated words and anti-Black and anti-LGBT slurs. Witness named Summy Ullah, recalling Sibley's response, said, quote, "We have our own life. We can do whatever we want, we're dancing. That's our life." The situation escalated into violence when Sibley's group confronted the young man, resulting in a fight in which the 17-year-old suspect, Dmitriy Popov, stabbed Sibley in the torso, piercing his heart. Sayeda Haider, another witness, graphically described the scene. Quote, "He had a problem with them dancing. He wanted them to stop dancing. He started arguing with them. And then after a few fights and back and forth arguing, he pulled out a knife and stabbed him," end quote. Popov fled and later turned himself in, his defense attorney claiming him to be a good Christian boy. Conflicting narratives, including mentions of religious motivation, have added to the complexity and intensity surrounding this tragic event, leaving a community in mourning and a case filled with unanswered questions. So, this is a very, very big thing that happened in the United States recently. So, I want to walk through what we know happened so far. And of course, I don't even think anyone's been charged yet. This hasn't gone to court, innocent until proven guilty, all that stuff. There might be more than we see. This is what we know so far. So there were a group of gay black men that were at this gas station, and they were hanging out. It's a hot summer day. They're in their swim trunks or whatever, and they're voguing. And vogue is it's a kind of dance that originated from the Black and Puerto Rican community in the 70s and 80s, and out of the ballroom scene. And it's a kind of dance where it's it blurs a lot of gender lines. You're kind of doing some feminine movements. The whole point of voguing is you're kind of copying model poses and stuff. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to Vogue, so I'm going to leave it at that because I can go on literally for 45 minutes about voguing. So what we originally heard reported in how this happened was that they were these men that were voguing, and then they were approached by a group of these other men who wanted them to stop dancing. And there were reports that they were explicit mentions, according to eyewitness testimony, talking about how the men approached them. Witnesses say that the men approached them talking about Islam, talking about, this is offensive to Islam. I don't want you to do this in front of me, blah, blah, blah. And so there were a lot of reports coming out that the suspect that killed him, who's only 17 years old, the suspected murderer is only 17 years old, basically said, "You're insulting my religion." There was a back and forth and then a stabbing. Now, the defense attorney has come out and made a statement saying, no, actually, he's not Muslim, because all of the witness statements that had been reported on so far talked about mentions of Islam being explicitly cited before the stabbing, and saying, actually, he's a good Christian boy. He works 2 jobs. He goes to church every week. Yeah. So one of the reports said that the suspected murderer said, quote, "Stop dancing here. We are Muslim. Get that gay shit out of here. Blah, blah, blah." And several of the witnesses who came forward saying this actually are Muslim themselves, who reported that this is what they heard before this incident happened. So now the defense attorney is coming out and saying, actually, he's Christian. And the fact that Here's what he said. Quote, if it's easily proven beyond a reasonable doubt, let's just say that he's Christian and he's not Muslim, it casts a lot of doubt on whatever witnesses are saying, said attorney Arthur Aidala, who's familiar with the case but not working on it. So now there's like all this contention about what's actually going on, what actually was the motivation, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm going to be honest, when I first heard about this and there was less information coming out, but the information available was reporting that he explicitly cited Islam before he stabbed this man. Like, I was going around because this stabbing is being investigated as a hate crime in the United States. And if it is found to be a hate crime, this would be one of the most prominent hate crimes that have happened in years. Anti-gay hate crimes that would have happened in years in the United States. So blatant, in public, just in the middle of Brooklyn, which in the middle of New York, a historically very prominently important city in gay culture. And given what's going on with the culture war in the US, blah, 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 like it's very pertinent, right? And when I was first hearing about this and there was no reaction from the media, like open, especially from LGBT news sources, talking about that the suspect at that time was, witnesses were saying was explicitly citing Islam before the stabbing, I was so pissed. I was like, why are we not having an open and honest conversation about the motivations behind this? Because I get really, really disgusted when the LGBT community in particular will jump at the opportunity to talk about Christian persecution against them, will actively cover up when there's persecution from Muslims against them. This is a trend we see with my community. And so I had a very strong reaction to this because I take that kind of thing really seriously and I really hate that hypocrisy. However, you know, there's more information coming out from the defense attorneys, blah, 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 where it's like, okay, maybe that wasn't the motivation. We don't know. So it is, of course, important to not jump on it, you know, because there is always more information that could come out. But that contention really, really bothered me because the only people I saw at the time speaking honestly about what happened or what we believed to have happened as of that point were like LGBT Muslims, like really going hard, talking about like, why are we not openly acknowledging what's going on here? Now there are some new statements that are casting doubt on exactly maybe what the motivations were, what went down, witness statements, blah, blah, blah. But all that being said, Armin, with all that extra context that I just gave, what is your reaction?
So just because I was thinking, what does it matter if the guy was Christian or Muslim? But the idea is that we heard some reports about the guy saying that this is because of Islam, like it was, but and then now if it comes out that he's Christian, the problem with this case is that everything that was seen is going to be doubted because of this, right? So because when we're trying to see if it's a hate crime or not, we want to see what happened, and people are saying that they heard him saying some Islamic stuff and now saying like apparently he's Christian. So now everything that has been described about what went on is now being questioned, and now we don't know if they could call it the hate crime or not because we don't know exactly what happened. Is that the summary of what's going on?
Basically, it is still actively being investigated as a hate crime. The mayor came out and made a big statement about it.
Can the guy just say I'm a Christian just so that to cast doubt on everything that is being said about him?
That's also true. That
Right.
would be convenient. But there has to be a wealth and body of evidence to support such a thing. And if their defense attorneys are coming out and saying that, I mean, I'm not saying all attorneys are good attorneys, but you have to be very, very careful in what you say as a defendant, right?
Right.
And I wouldn't say something like that unless I had something to back it up with. But then again,
Right.
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, so okay, let me read some of these comments. What has this got to do with that? Democrats made New York City very dangerous. Okay. Stay with your BS. What? These are some homophobic people. I'm not going to read that. Oh, look, you want to read this one?
It says this. Oh yeah, so here's an example. This person has a rainbow Muhammad as their icon, as their avatar.
Yeah.
It says, quote, "This gang of men were from a certain religion of peace that condemns homosexuality as a punishable sin within Sharia law. If they were Christian, would this have been reported?" Well, that's the thing. I actually think if it is confirmed that this man is a Christian in the popular media narrative, that would actually be jumped on much more than if it was confirmed that he was a Muslim. I think that would be seized upon in an instant.
Really? You think so?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. When there are domestic terrorists that are Christians or have kind of a white Christian nationalist bent, that is seized upon instantly.
This is the first time.
Meanwhile, with the Orlando Pulse Club shooting, the fact that murderer's background was actively, what's the word I'm looking for? De-emphasized.
Right. I mean, this guy, shouldn't it be easy to figure out if somebody was Christian or Muslim? Like, the person has no social media activity, doesn't go to mosque. People can tell, if he was praying or not. Or is it just like this? I don't know. It's weird that this is a question.
And depending on what actually happened, I want to be clear, depending on what prosecutors and the defense attorneys rule, or determine actually happened, the religion of the suspect might actually be irrelevant at the end of the day. But the reason why I'm talking about it now is because of the reporting that's available to us. It seems that there was a motivation because of that, based on what's available to me right now.
Right. Well, I mean, it's also important to, people might think okay, somebody died. Why are you trying to figure out if this was Islamic or Christian? Because we need to understand what's causing spreading the hatred, right? And which one is doing it more. And we need to realize the process at which this happens, the details, what is it's not enough to just be oh, it's Islam or it's Christianity. These needs to be studied, the step-by-step process, the radicalization process. If you want to see less of this, you need to understand all the details. We need to have people who study society and behavior and psychology and trends. They're people who dedicate their entire lives studying these things, and a better understanding of all of these trends is what gets us to a point where we could come up with solutions, right? And a lot of people on the internet just simplify these things. Even we understand that Islam, Christianity, religion are forces behind many of these actions, but there's a lot more detail to it than that. You can't just be oh, Islam, okay, Islam, how exactly? And how exactly it differs from one place, from not just from one country to another, but also from one city to another, and from one community to another, right? So I think there's a lot of details to this, and we don't have time to go through that, but I just want us to recognize that there's a lot more to it than just calling out the name of a religion or a cult or whatever. Anyways,
I agree with you. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Right.
Because there are a lot of
course,
times
I'm
where
saying-
like media will actually make like the religion of someone more relevant than it necessarily actually is in any given action. But sometimes it is very relevant in understanding the context, the motivation, the influences that lead to things like this. I think that's like the lens that I want to take.
Right. I think there's a lot of people like to simplify things, both people who want to emphasize that it's the religion and people who want to really, take attention away from the religion. I think people on our side who want to emphasize the religion, they simplify things sometimes too much, a lot of times actually, and make it seem like, oh, you just need to name Islam and that's done. That's all that needs to be done. That's it. Everything it just explains itself. And then people on the other side also think like, nope, really, it's regardless of the religion. Religion has no influence, right? But again, I think we have to understand that whatever we see happen in society is multifactorial. It's rarely just one thing, and the process always differs. And we like to simplify things because we really want to understand why things happen. And if it's simple, then we feel comfort because now we understand it. And for that comfort, if it's too complicated, we think is out of reach, and we don't like it because it brings uncertainty, and uncertainty brings a sense of insecurity, like lack of security,
Fear.
and we don't like that. Yeah, that's why we make God. God simplifies why things happen. All right. So there's that. Can we now
got
clap?
a few super chats.
Oh yes.
Master of Darkness gave us a $5 super chat. Thank you. Saying, I like the show. Well, thank you. I like that you help support the show.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Gasian American said, if going to church turns you into an unaliver, you should stop going. I would agree. I am anti-unaliver, generally speaking.
Right. Oh my God.
Generally speaking,
Generally, not always, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, self-defense, all those things.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Like murder, bad.
That's our official position.
Yes.
We're so brave.